Last time I refilled the feed bin, I actually stopped and did the math, and it was almost $40 more than it used to cost me a year ago. If you keep chickens, you've probably felt that same gut punch at the feed store recently. Here's the thing though, a real chunk of what you're paying for in that bag is probably already growing somewhere on your property for free. You just haven't been looking at it that way yet. In this video, I'm walking you through 10 plants that can meaningfully cut that feed bill. Not replace it completely, I'll be straight with you about that right now, but cut it in a way you'll actually notice over a season. And stick around for number 9 because it's a plant most people either ignore completely or rip out of the garden without realizing it's one of the best protein sources you can grow for chickens anywhere in the world. This is the Animal and Plant Lost Vault, a channel built around one idea. The way people used to raise animals and grow food before everything came shrink-wrapped from a store. Old world knowledge, practical homesteading, the stuff that actually worked for generations before any of us were around. If that's the kind of thing you're into, go ahead and subscribe now because I put one of these out every week and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Before we get into the list, I want to be upfront about something because it'll change how you use everything that follows. Commercial layer feed is balanced for a reason. It usually sits around 16 to 18% protein for laying hens, and that consistency is part of why it works so well. So no, none of these plants are going to let you stop buying feed altogether, and honestly, if a video promises that, I'd be skeptical of it too. What this actually does is chip away at how much of that bag you go through, and over a season that adds up more than most people expect. It also tends to make your eggs richer just from the wider range of nutrients your flock is getting. So don't think of this as a replacement plan. Think of it as a system you build a little at a time, 1 or 2 plants this year, maybe a couple more next year, until it just becomes part of how you keep your flock without thinking too hard about it. With that out of the way, let's get into the first one, and this is probably already growing somewhere you're not expecting. Plant number 1 is dandelion. Most people see these popping up in the lawn and either spray them or rip them out by the root. Don't. Chickens will eat the leaves, the flowers, even the roots if you let them get at it. And nutritionally, dandelion greens carry more vitamin A, vitamin K, and calcium than a lot of the greens people buy for their own salads. The best part is you don't have to plant a single thing. If you've got any unmowed grass, a fence line, even cracks in a gravel driveway, dandelions are probably already there waiting. Just pull a handful, give it a rinse if it's near a road where it might pick up runoff, and toss it into the run. Chickens usually go straight for the flower heads first, then work through the leaves after. This is the easiest one on the whole list, and it costs you nothing but a few minutes. Plant number 2 is comfrey, and if you talk to anyone who's been keeping chickens a long time, this is usually one of the first plants they bring up. It's sometimes called the homesteader's superfood plant because it's one of the few non-legume plants that gets close to legume-level protein in its leaves, somewhere around 20 to 25% protein by dry weight, depending on how it's grown. What makes comfrey especially practical is that it's a cut-and-come-again plant. You chop the leaves down close to the base, and within a couple of weeks it regrows enough to harvest again. One established patch, maybe 4 or 5 plants tucked along a fence or in a corner of the yard, can supply a steady trickle of high-protein greens all season without you replanting a thing. Now here's a small caution worth knowing. The leaves are a little rough and fuzzy, so chopping them up first makes it easier for the birds to eat without picking around it. This is where most people get stuck. They grow the comfrey and then wonder why the flock isn't touching it, and it's usually just because the leaves were left whole. Plant number 3 is clover, and this is one most people already have without realizing it, especially if there's any patch of pasture, lawn, or unused field nearby. Chickens genuinely love clover, and because it's a legume, it fixes nitrogen into the soil as it grows, so letting it spread isn't just feeding your flock, it's improving the ground underneath it at the same time. If you free-range your birds at all, even for short supervised stretches, clover patches are usually where they spend most of their time grazing on their own. And if you don't free range, clover is easy enough to cut and bring to them. It holds up well after cutting too, staying fresh in the run for a few hours without wilting fast the way some greens do. This is one of those plants that quietly does 2 jobs at once, and that's a theme you'll start noticing as we go further down the list. Plant number 4 is chickweed, and the name alone tells you something. This plant has been tied to poultry feeding for a long time, likely because chickens take to it so readily. It's a low-growing, tender plant that often shows up in cooler weather, sometimes even surviving a light frost, which makes it especially useful in early spring or late fall when other forage options are thinning out. Chickweed is mild and easy to digest with low risk of overfeeding it, which isn't true of everything on this list, so I want you to remember that distinction as we move forward. If you've got a shaded, slightly damp corner of your yard where nothing else seems to grow well, there's a decent chance chickweed is already trying to take over there, and now you've got a reason to let it. That's 4 down, and notice none of these required you to plant anything new yet. This is where things start to shift though, because the next few plants are ones you choose to grow specifically for your flock, and this is where the real system starts coming together. Quick pause before we keep going. If you're finding this useful so far, this is exactly the kind of practical, no-nonsense homesteading content I put out every week on this channel. Things that have actually been tested by people raising animals the traditional way, not just repeated from a blog post somewhere. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe because next week I've got a video covering the 3 biggest mistakes new chicken keepers make with feed. Mistakes that quietly cost them money for months before they even notice. You'll want to catch that one. Alright, let's keep going, and this next one is where the numbers actually start to matter. Plant number 5 is amaranth, and it's one of the most efficient plants you can grow on purpose for chicken feed, because almost the entire plant is usable. The leaves are nutrient-dense, similar to spinach, and the seed heads, once they dry out toward the end of the season, work almost like a tiny grain crop, often running 14 to 16% protein. Now, I'm not going to hand you some exact dollar figure here because honestly, it depends. Your climate, how big your patch is, how well it establishes that first year. But a modest 10 by 10 patch, once it's going, can realistically take a noticeable bite out of your feed costs for the months it's producing. It won't carry the whole season on its own, and some years you'll get less out of it than others depending on rainfall and how early you plant. But it's one of the better returns on effort for the space it takes up, and it tends to self-seed, so the patch usually comes back on its own the following year with even less work from you. Plant number 6 is sunflowers, probably the most familiar plant on this whole list. But most people only think of the seeds as a treat, not as an actual feed strategy. If you let the heads fully mature and dry on the stalk, instead of harvesting them early, you end up with a dense, protein and fat-rich food source that chickens will work at for a while, which is actually a nice side benefit. It gives them something to do, and that helps cut down on boredom-related pecking issues in the flock. Now here's the caution, and this is where things start to change from the first 4 plants. Sunflower seeds are high in fat, so they shouldn't make up too large a share of the daily diet, generally kept as a smaller supplemental portion rather than something they eat every single day in large amounts. Think of it less as a meal replacement and more as a calorie-dense boost, especially useful heading into colder months when chickens benefit from a little extra fat reserve to handle the temperature drop. Plant number 7 is nasturtium, and I think it's one of the most underrated plants for anyone running a mixed garden and livestock setup, which describes a lot of backyard situations across the country. The leaves and flowers are both edible for chickens, and the plant itself is commonly used as a companion plant in vegetable gardens because its scent tends to deter certain pests like aphids and squash bugs. So if you're already gardening, planting a border of nasturtium around your vegetable beds is doing 2 jobs at once, protecting your crops and giving you a steady, low-maintenance source of greens for the flock at the same time. It's also one of the faster-growing options on this list, often ready to start harvesting within about 6 to 8 weeks of planting, which makes it a good one to start with if you're newer to growing anything intentionally for your birds. That's 7. Now here's the part that actually makes the rest of this worth paying attention to, because the next 3 are plants serious. Long-time homesteaders tend to know about, but most casual chicken keepers have genuinely never even considered. Plant number 8 is lamb squatters, sometimes called wild spinach, and that comparison is pretty accurate. It's a common weed in disturbed soil, garden beds, and along field edges, and it's nutritionally dense, particularly in calcium, iron, and protein compared to most other wild forage plants you'll come across. The advantage here is similar to dandelion. You likely don't need to plant it at all. If you've got garden beds, there's a good chance it's already trying to grow in them, and most gardeners pull it as a weed without ever realizing what they're throwing into the compost pile. Next time you're weeding, instead of tossing lamb squatters aside, toss it to the chickens instead. It costs you nothing and saves you a step you were already doing anyway. Plant number 9 is moringa, and this is the one I teased at the very start. Most backyard chicken keepers in the United States have never heard of it, but in parts of the world where it grows natively, it's considered one of the best protein and nutrient sources available for both people and livestock. The leaves can run as high as 25 to 30% protein by dry weight, along with a dense profile of vitamins and minerals that's genuinely hard to match with any single plant we've covered so far. Now, here's the realistic part because I don't want to oversell this one. Moringa is a tropical and subtropical tree, so depending on where you live, it may need to be grown in a container and brought indoors over winter, or treated as an annual that you replant each year if you're somewhere with real frost. That's more effort than something like dandelion, no question. But even as a container plant, a single moringa tree can produce a steady supply of leaves for harvesting every few weeks. If you're in a warmer climate, say the Gulf Coast, parts of the Southwest, or you're willing to bring a container indoors for winter further north, this is genuinely one of the highest value plants you can grow for your flock. It's just less commonly known, which is exactly why it tends to get overlooked. Plant number 10 is pumpkin and squash, and this one comes with a practical bonus beyond just nutrition. The flesh, the pulp, and especially the seeds are all things chickens will eat readily. The flesh is a good source of vitamins and moisture, particularly useful in hot weather when hydration matters more, but the seeds are the interesting part. Pumpkin seeds contain a compound called cucurbitacin, which has traditionally been used as a natural deworming aid in poultry. I want to be clear though, it's a mild supportive measure, not a replacement for an actual parasite treatment plan if you're dealing with a real infestation, so don't rely on pumpkin seeds alone if you've already got a worm problem showing up in your flock. The seasonal timing also works out well. Pumpkins and squash mature right around fall, which is exactly when other forage options on this list start slowing down for the year, so it's a natural way to keep some variety in the diet as the growing season winds down and before winter sets in. So that's all 10. Now instead of just leaving you with a list, here's what I'd actually do with this information, because a list by itself doesn't change anything if you don't act on it. Don't try to plant all 10 at once. That's usually how these projects stall out by July, when the weeding gets overwhelming. Start with whatever's already growing for free, dandelion or clover, since that costs you nothing and takes almost no effort to begin using today. Then add one intentional planting next season. Comfrey or amaranth are both forgiving for beginners and don't require much specialized care. I'll be honest with you, it won't go perfectly the first year. A frost might take out your chickweed early, or your comfrey might take a full season just to establish before you get a real harvest from it. That's normal, and it doesn't mean it's not working. It just means it takes a year or two to build into a real rhythm where you're not thinking about it anymore. It's just part of how you feed your flock. Stack 3 or 4 of these together over time and you end up with a flock that's eating better and a feed bill that's noticeably smaller, even if it never gets all the way down to zero. Nobody running a real flock has gotten it to zero, and you shouldn't expect to either. That's not the goal here. If you made it this far, I'd actually be curious. Drop a comment and let me know which of these you've already got growing without even trying. I bet it's more than you think once you start looking around your own yard differently. This is the Animal and Plant Lost Vault, and every week I'm digging up another piece of practical, old-world knowledge for raising animals and growing food the way it used to be done. If that's useful to you, stick around. There's more of this coming. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.